Hello and Happy New Year! Welcome to 2019 on the Adam Thomas Music Channel. So, this is the album pickups video for December 2018, the last video of anything to do really with 2018 at all. And let's see what Father Christmas brought me. Because it appears, on the album front anyway, I'd been a good boy this year, and so I got a couple of albums right here. Let's dive into them. So first on the list is the first full-length album by Mayhem, Die Mysteriis dum Sathanas. It's seen as a classic album, and you can kind of, the more you listen to it, you can kind of see why it's considered so highly. And there we have the two members who were the only last, technically full members when the album came out, Hellhammer and Euronymous. But of course, as you know the story, Euronymous, by the time this was properly released, was already dead, killed by Varg Vikernes of Obzen. Now this album I first heard a couple of years ago and absolutely hated. I just didn't really get it, and I can still see why I didn't like it to begin with, because to be honest, I'm not actually much of a big fan of Attila's vocals on this album. It works for the genre, I feel, but I feel like it could have been done a bit better. But you know, their previous singer was dead by this point, so you know, it was a bit difficult to get him in. Attila did a good job though, however. It's less of the sort of normal, what you'd expect from black metal, of the shrieking, and it's more, I'd say, gargled singing. It's almost like, instead of, you know, singing normally, he's singing like this, is sort of how it sounds. It definitely works for the genre, and some of the songs on this album are really good. I can see why people like it so much. So, for me, big on this is the instrumentation, not so huge on the vocals, great album. So, while I was out looking for some black metal, because this is right at the start of the month, I of course had to pick up another classic, which is Under the Sign of the Black Mark by Bathory. So Bathory were a first wave black metal band, Mayhem being a second wave black metal band, Swedish, and this was their last sort of, some people consider it the last sort of the pure black metal albums they produced, because they eventually went on to do stuff like Viking metal and other things like that later, which is cool as well. I actually almost prefer those albums, and this is a really fun album to listen to. To be honest, like I mentioned before, some of the Viking stuff, like Twilight of the Gods, I'm more interested in, but this is a solid album. Out of those two, though, I must say that the Mayhem one is more my cup of tea. And then we jump forward a bit, and ho, it's been Christmas. So now we've got some new albums. Bit of a genre shift here. We have Snarky Puppy's We Like It Here. I've been looking for this album for ages. I was first recommended Snarky Puppy by a couple of friends who I went to university with, and I was getting really into jazz, and I was like, what great fusion is out there? Because fusion is my favourite sort of subgenre of jazz. Being a fan of rock, obviously, and being a fan of progressive music, I really like the sort of merging of elements and everything that's involved in that. And I think to a small degree, it's due to my love of Gran Turismo, that I sort of started liking that style of it so much. And the songs I first heard from them was from this album. Please, if you're into jazz at all, or if you have any interest to listen to any good jazz whatsoever, go on YouTube or whatever streaming service and listen to the songs from We Like It Here. They are fantastic pieces of jazz composition. I love them. And the interesting thing about it is, what you get your CD, but you also get, which isn't in all the other Snarky Puppy albums I have, but you get the DVD as well, because Snarky Puppy albums, for the most part, are filmed in front of a sort of, not a live audience in the sense of, you know, an arena, but are filmed with other people around and everything, and it's a proper performance. And so all the songs on the CD are the exact same recording that's on the DVD, so you can sit down and actually watch them at play, and it's fantastic. I really love that album. Honestly, pick that album up if you want to that hates jazz, leave it out, you'll despise it. But if you like jazz, pick it up. It's brilliant. Keeping the jazz thing going, another album I heard about when I went to university was a bit older, Herbie Hancock's Headhunters. I first actually learnt of this from studying ethnomusicology, which is the study of traditional, normally non-Western musics. And one of the songs, Watermelon Man, features a section from a traditional, I believe it's South American, I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. I believe South American traditional music. They then wrote a composition on top of, but there's only 4 songs on this album. A couple of them are quite long, but they're just great, long, jamming, just sets, and they're fantastic. I really do like this album. Out of the 2 Chaz ones of the month, though, Snarky Puppies does win. I do believe it's the better of the 2, but just for straight up weird experimentation and just grooves after grooves after grooves, Headhunters is a brilliant album. Right, time for another genre shift. Back over to metal, where we're going to be staying for the remaining portion of this. Now, death metal is a genre that I quite like, although I admittedly haven't delved too deep into. I'm, I guess, a bit basic in the sense that my favourite death metal band is Death. I've gone to see death metal bands like Dying Fetus live, and I do like them. And you know, there's like Necrophages and everything like that, but I haven't explored too deeply, but I did come across a video by a Canadian band called Beyond Creation, and since then I've seeked out their albums, and I actually found the most recent one in the shop, which was Algorythm, which came out this year. Now the cool thing about Beyond Creation is well, a couple of cool things about them is the drop tuning and the like extra strings on the guitar obviously isn't that out of place thing in metal nowadays, but it's fun to hear it. But really, it's the use of the fretless bass and how I feel Beyond Creation are one of those bands that have it and use it well. Because sometimes you have it and it's almost you could neither tell where it was here nor there. Now this is going to be. Some people would think that this is overuse, but for me, if you've got it in a genre that it's not normally used in, like metal for example, because you know it's more associated with, say, jazz for example, I feel like you should really hammer it out a bit, and the bass guitar in this almost acts like another lead, in the same sense as how Geddy Lee's bass playing works in Rush, if you're familiar with Rush at all, which you should be, because they're great. Where it can sometimes be the forefront, and where the guitars will just do simple chords. It's the bass that's giving you the melody and the riffing, and it's the bass playing is really good in this album. However, compared to some of the other stuff I've listened to by them, this album was just okay. Some great songs on it, of course, but some less interesting ones. It's worth picking up if you like them. And another interesting thing about them is that some of the songs are in French, because I think they're from Quebec or from around there, so if you like listening to French music and you like metal, then hey, go for it there, man. A slightly lightening of the genre change now, but not too much, is that I had to pick up Slayer's most recent album and potentially their last album, Repentless. Now this is, I do believe, the first one since their 2009 album, World Painted Blood, and to be honest, I feel like this one is a significant improvement. I wasn't a big fan of that last album, but this is, of course, the, I guess at this point, only album to not include their now late guitarist, Jeff Hanneman, who, after contracting a flesh-eating virus about a year after that, died. Which means that now the writing went solely on Kerry King's lap, and it does feel different without Jeff's writing in there, but it's still a good album. I like it. It's got a nice different feel towards the end, and it has and it features Gary Holt from Exodus, who's a great filling guitarist, and honestly, Exodus's music is definitely worth listening to as well, because the riffing on that is just immense. Moving on from there, we then have Anthrax's most recent album, For All Kings. Now, if anyone who's watching who knows me will know that my favourite Anthrax album is actually their full length that came out before this one, Worship Music. I think it blows everything else they've done out of the water. I love the return of Joey Belladonna and just the new sort of energy that came to that album. I know most of the album was actually written with the other singer they had before. But really, like, once he came in, it sounded so great, and this album is a continuation of that. I haven't had much chance to listen to a lot of it in between getting it and recording this, but I'm looking forward to listening to that one because it seems like it's a continuation of that style, and that's the style I really like from Anthrax. I almost feel, in the same way as Testament, that Anthrax are possibly growing better with age, like a fine wine. Then we move on to a couple of albums I bought by Avenged Sevenfold, and these are their two most recent albums. They're the only ones I didn't have. So starting with Hail to the King, which is, honestly, it's okay. It's a kind of by-the-numbers metal album. I've, in the past, called this, I don't know, I'm not the only person who says this, a lot of other people do, just a copy of the Black Album, and some of the songs kind of sound like rewrites of some of the songs of the Black Album, but hey, you know, influence and everything, and, you know, copying is the greatest form of flattery, or whatever that phrase is. It's not a bad album, and those songs in particular do stand out quite nicely, but the other songs on it are quite a treat as well. It just, for me, it's a nice part of the collection. I'll listen to it, I do enjoy it, but I kind of prefer some of the other stuff. Specifically, I prefer the most recent album, The Stage. For me, this feels like a return to form. It's a return to sort of the style around Nightmare. For me, honestly, Nightmare was a kind of, other than the single, was a bit of a drop-off from the previous two albums, City of Evil and their self-titled album. And this feels like it's coming back up to that level again, which is why I'm really liking it. Also, it's a tiny bit proggier than some of their other stuff, and I love prog. So I'm always happy to hear this. And it's almost like latter-day Iron Maiden kind of prog. So if you like albums like The Final Frontier, which I do, and I like modern day Iron Maiden, then it's definitely worth a listen. But if you're at all familiar with Avenged Sevenfold, you know that they are a band that wear their influences on their sleeves. If you've been reluctant to give them a try, because they have this somewhat of a, not a bad reputation, but some metal elitists see them as not worthy to listen to. If you like Iron Maiden, Pantera and Guns N' Roses, then they're basically the combination of that with a couple of other things chucked in. They're great. You should definitely listen to them. Honestly, unless you're into metalcore, I wouldn't really recommend the first two albums. I like some metalcore, but it's not really my cup of tea. It's from those albums onwards that are worth listening to, and in that collection, The Stage is definitely worth picking up. Now, if you notice so far into the video, we've been genre shifting, or sub-genre shifting once you get into the metal bit here, and now we're in, for the home stretch, we're going to be in a couple of different sort of areas of prog, starting with, argumentably or not, gent. Although really, this could all come under progressive metal. So, a band I've listened to a lot online, but never actually properly gotten into their albums before, was Meshuggah. And so, of course, I had to start with the one that has the song that I know and everyone knows, Bleed, which is Obzen. And I really like this album. It's Meshuggah, if you haven't listened to them, are incredibly rhythmic. That's where the beauty of it lies. And you don't get so many large melodies or like overly complicated solos. It's all in the rhythm. I would somewhat consider them a continuation, in a sense, of some of the stuff that obviously there's the groove metal influence from Pantera, but also from some of the stuff that Sepultura did. Like on the Roots album, but it just takes it in a bit more of a odd approach and likes to add a bit more oddness, a bit sort of the feeling of different time signatures, even though it's not really shifting very much into it. It's really great. It's unusually catchy grooves. You hear a lot of people saying, oh, you know, things have to be simple, things have to be simple. If the postman can't whistle it, what's the point? But these riffs, despite being odd, really catch you, and they are earworms, and you can't work out why, but they're just great. And so to go along with that, I also got the album that came out after that, Koloss, which I've also heard a lot of online, and it's really a continuation of Obzen. I really like it. Good album. So now we're reaching into more straight up prog, and we've got Opeth's most recent album, Sorceress. Now, I haven't listened to Opeth properly since they did Heritage, although that's not for a negative reason. Some people really hate Heritage because it marks a point in which they sort of stripped away the last of the Opeth being sort of progressive meeting death metal or progressive death metal style, and more just pure prog, almost rock, rather than just progressive metal. It definitely has that feel. They sort of wanted to go for a almost trying to sound like Deep Purple if they were almost lighter but more progressive in a sense kind of feel. And I actually really, really like that album. I just haven't listened to them for a while since after that, for whatever reason. And so, starting with the most recent album, which means I still have one album missing from them, actually, which is the previous one. With this album, like I've said with the Anthrax one, for example, I haven't had a chance to listen to it very much. But if it's a continuation of the normal Opeth style that they've had since Heritage, then I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy it. Which brings us to our last one, which I'm also guilty of having not listened to a huge amount of. We have Dream Theater's The Astonishing. Now, this is a continuation of the sort of the prog epic, which you could see as, you know, some of the albums that started it would be things like Rush's 2112 or Camel's The Snow Goose. You could even, in a sense, put Jeff Wayne's musical adaptation of The War of the Worlds in there as well, where they've got themselves a story and they've written it and then written the music around that. I don't feel like I can properly comment on this yet, as I haven't given the whole thing a listen, but really, with those things, you do have to give them a whole listen. But the album artwork and everything, and the book you get in is fantastic. I've yet to be disappointed by Dream Theater, so I reckon I'm going to enjoy that one quite a bit. So, that was all the album pickups for December 2018, and a good year of album pickups it has been. A particular shout out I'd like to give, at least as potentially my favourite album coming out that year, is probably Immortals Northern Chaos Gods, that I picked up and actually did a sort of joint review on this channel, comparing it to a Bath's self-titled album. Now that was really good. But for this particular haul, now excluding the years, what would be the best I've picked out of there? Well, I would pick two albums that I've particularly enjoyed out of it. And I feel like I can justifiably put two, as there's a hell of a lot here, and there's quite a big genre shift in here, and it would have to be Mayhem's Mysteriis, Doom Sathanas, and Snarky Puppy's We Like It Here. Both great. Pick which one you want as your best. However, as of right now, I'm feeling more this one. So, there's a lot more content to look forward to as we go forward in the future in this year. I wish you all a happy new year, and yeah, let's make it a great one. I'll see you next month, and if not, we will have another video in between, hopefully. Goodbye.